Hello and welcome to Chaos Tournaments. Today I will be doing an interview with Temujin, the winner of the Treasure Series 4, who managed to go from, you said you were playing for a year and a half?
Yeah, about a year and a half.
Yeah. Managed to go from brand new to winner of a semi-major tournament within 2 years, which is very impressive. So, Temujin, as we get into this, what's your story as far as how you got into Magic and how you got into cEDH later on?
Well, I'd say something that a lot of Magic players can agree with, right? As a kid, the 13 to 15 era, in high school, just playing a little bit of Magic. But I don't really consider that the start of my journey, to be honest. I just, I got cool cards. I got a Colossal Dreadmaw. I'm going to set this down, swing it, and that's the most powerful thing on the board, right? And
Best card in the game.
We're just a bunch of goons, just doing our thing. But where I really think it started is I spent a year in Korea, and the year that I was there, I ended up making a group of friends who were extremely knowledgeable and have been playing for very, very, very many years. And they're people that are very dedicated to Magic the Gathering as a whole. And I started off just as a casual player for probably about the first 3 months. And one of my friends over there, he had a Gitrog monster deck. And, and I saw this and I'm like so interested in it. He's teaching me the lines and I'm like, man, like how can I get into this? How can I make my decks to that power level? Because I don't know, I just like doing strong things.
Yeah.
And at the time I had a pretty weak Kirk deck and I'm like, can I make my deck cEDH? Like, is that something that I'm able to do? And it turns out Kirk is a pretty good cEDH commander. Probably not top tier, but it does its thing from time to time. And as time went by, these people were so knowledgeable, and if one person didn't know something, another one did. And yeah, my questions were always answered, whether I liked the answer or not. And I learned all the rules very, very quickly, probably within the first 4 months. I was very knowledgeable on the stack, all the interactions, when to interact, and threats on the table. It's something that you'll notice quite quickly in tabletop Magic. People don't care about stack. People don't care about threats. And so picking that up pretty early helped a lot. So yeah, as I started developing Kirk, started being able to beat the Gitrog monster from time to time. I got more and more into it, and then I started doing my research online. And then I kind of transferred over to Jessica Ishai. I thought it was pretty cool. I was like, damn, I could just one-shot people. That's so overpowered, right? No. And so eventually I decided, well, I kind of want to play something a little bit stronger. I want to play something that more competitive. I actually really want to get competitive with it. I want to win, like this is something that I truly enjoy. I love the interactions. I love not being able to like have to hold back, like you at a casual table and there's no spiting for the most part. There's no, all right, well, you've had a rough game, man. I'll let you have that one. I can play the game as I want to, and that's when Comedian ended up winning a tournament with Tivit, and I'm like, man, this commander's pretty cool. So just like the rest of us Tivit players were like, all right, let's try this out, and it like instantly clicked with me. The card quality of the deck, the interactions, the control, the value pieces, like the deck had everything that I ever wanted. Really started to love it, and then eventually I saw a Mox Masters tournament, and I'm like, hey, I can do that now. Let's test that out. I got my butt absolutely kicked. I don't feel like I did, horrible. There was just mistakes. Mistakes were made, and I'm like, all right, well, I guess I don't need to be so antsy on the gun. I can wait a turn. Like that's a thing I'm allowed to do, even though there's 5 minutes left on the clock. I can wait. It's fine. And so little things like that, and then we went to our next tournament, and I was pretty antsy, and I was stressing out the entire day, and every game I won, I was just sweating from everywhere. Not doing all right, but it was a great adventure, and I'm so glad I'm continuing with it.
Yeah. I mean, nice that you have that community around you from the start, being able to get you in and build you up like that.
Yeah, for sure. Wouldn't have been able to do it without them, to be honest. I think that's something that's so important if you want to like grow yourself as a Magic player, is finding your pod, your group, your community, and crafting your own community and putting it in
Hmm.
your vision. And once you create that healthy community where everyone wants to learn, and you got those knowledgeable players that are 80 years old and whatever, but they
80 in Magic years, at least.
yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were the best for sure.
So, you mentioned comedian as someone that you use for additional resources. Were there any other resources that you turned to when you were digging into things more yourself?
Well, it hasn't been that long since I've left Korea, so a big majority of the resources that I've gotten is from that community. Very, very knowledgeable players. One of them was a EX judge, and so anytime that I had any convoluted questions, it would go straight to him, and eventually, just pick out on it on myself. Um, there's quite a few YouTube channels that are pretty knowledgeable, and it's good to just see how the decks play out and see little tiny interactions that you don't always normally see. You know,
Hmm.
um, just because Magic is so chaotic that the same thing is not going to happen necessarily every time, and there's going to be some situations that you just never think of. So I think it's really important to see those coming sometimes, especially with the very popular decks like Najila, Sisse, Tivit. It's very important to see the outliers, and
Hmm.
because sometimes it'll come from a side angle, and you'll be like, oh, okay, I just lost. Um, mostly just my original community, and watching every game that I could ever watch, and just jamming as many spell table games as I can with all the randos in the world, and just trying to, you know, sometimes you'll see some very fringe decks, but also those very fringe decks will show you some interactions that you never ever would have thought of. And so it's good not to disrespect them, and let the fringe decks do their thing, because you'll learn something from it for sure.
Yeah, it's important to know both for meta and for non-meta what the deck is doing, what combo pieces there are, where to interact, stuff like that. So
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
absolutely agree with watching gameplay and getting your own games in. Other than watching gameplay, grinding out games, are there any specific tips that you have for new players?
I truly think the greatest thing that you can do for yourself if you're wanting to grow as fast as possible, or to grow in a very, very healthy way, is to find your pod, find your community, right? Even if that's just one friend that you have to like pull and drag into the Magic, maybe they don't want to spend the money. Proxies are okay. It's a thing. It's a thing you run into a lot with people. I don't want to spend the money. Well, you're in cEDH, man. You can proxy. It's something that I
Hmm.
hold very, very true to myself. I wouldn't be able to do this without proxies. Even though I try to buy as many cards as I can, just because it feels good. Um, but yeah, without a pod, without a community, without people that you can trust, people that you hang out with every weekend, you're just you're not going to get that friendly growth vibe that you would get anywhere else. And just challenging your friends. You're gonna do this thing where he gets a little bit better, or he knows a little bit more, and then he knows a little bit more, and he put this card in his deck, and now you're fighting through a meta, and I think that's really important. Putting in cards for your meta, and even if it's just your little 4-player pod, I think that is the most important thing that you can do for yourself as a player, is being outgoing and just, hey man, how you doing? This is my name. I'm new to the area. Can I jump in a pod, and then
Hmm.
go from there? Craft your community.
Well, I'm going to say that even if you don't have any local scene for that, you do have Discord as an option.
Yeah, for sure.
Chaos Discord, you've got groups where with the league, we're running pods pretty much constantly, and you've got people that you can talk to, and it's like, hey, can you help me out with this deck? What are your thoughts on this? Stuff like that. There's also the Nexus, I know, that has some similar opportunities. It's a slightly larger community, and sometimes the feedback that you're going to get isn't as consistently good. But if you know who to talk to, if you know what you're looking for, you can kind of sift out what's good, what's bad. Same with the Reddit community, as well as there's a few others. If you don't have a local scene, Discord is absolutely a great place to go for it.
For sure.
Do you have any other things you want to say as far as helping out new players or commenting on maybe people who've been in the community a little bit longer and trying to give them a way to help out new players better?
I think that in cEDH games, it's very important to talk. It really is. It's something that I personally like to do. I like to talk during my games. But in a cEDH game, politics is like, I'm not going to say super important, but like it is one of the cornerstones of cEDH, right? Players can play a removal spell, and you can be like, well, actually, there's a target over here that's like, way more important. And I think that turns the tide of cEDH games way more than you'll ever see in, in your 1v1 formats. That's not a thing, right? And so I think getting people out of their shells and getting people to ask questions that they normally wouldn't ask. Well, why are you doing that? Like, what is your intention behind doing this? Like, are you trying to slow down me specifically, or are you trying to win the game next turn? Or like, can't you just hold that in your hand? Like, it's instant speed, man. Why are you doing that on your turn? Like, these are all very valid questions to ask. And as one of the 4 players in the pod, in a tournament scene, you kind of need to ask those questions. They can get redundant, and at the end of the day, you can get very tired of talking, and you can feel bad about it for asking too many questions. But I think without those questions, personally, like I would not have made the top 4 without politicking. My top 16 match was very, very politician heavy or politic heavy, and it was probably the closest match out of all of them, all the way through the Swiss, all the way through the finals. And if I didn't know how to talk as a person, I would have been knocked out of that game so much sooner, and someone else would have taken the dub there. So even though a lot of people don't always want to talk, it's not their thing. I think it is a very valuable skill that you want to grind at when you're in your tournament settings.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I'd also say that for learning, even if it's not during the game, talking after the game and asking people, hey, why did you do that? Or, hey, could I have done this better? Is a really good way of advancing your skill, especially if you know that they're good players and you know that what they say is going to have weight behind it. It's a really good way to improve.
For sure. And this runs back to the community aspect, right? You're going to be a lot more comfortable talking to people that that you've been, playing with for a while, and asking these questions to your friends. They're more likely to hopefully give you a very straight answer. And hopefully that's going to teach them, that embeds more into the community effect, yeah.
Well, before we close out here, are there any closing statements you want to make? Any shout outs, anything like that?
Well, first off, I want to thank you guys for the opportunity presented to us as a community, right? We wouldn't be able to do this. We wouldn't be able to learn. We wouldn't be able to meet all these amazing people that are, really good at what they do without tournaments like this. So I couldn't be more thankful to have an opportunity like this. And then the people back home in Korea, they're the ones who have brought me the furthest, and I hope to see them again soon. And they're the real ones for sure.
Well, I think you might have made him proud with your performance, so well done. I hope to see more of you in the future. And thank you for coming on here and talking with us, as well as thank you to all of our viewers and to all of our patrons. Special shout out to Frenchie, the Exterminator, Aries, and Suzu. So thank you guys so much. We really could not do this without you.